Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining. Feel free to put your name in the chat and where you're joining from. That would be really good to hear. So firstly, I'd like to do an introduction to ourselves and just go through some housekeeping. Tonight's event is hosted by the Agile Business Consortium, the professional body for business agility. The consortium is in our 26th year now, and we offer professional development in Agile, a body of knowledge, resources and tools, and a global Agile membership community. If everyone could please keep their microphone muted and be aware we are recording this event for the Agile20Reflect archive. Tonight, I'm pleased to say that we're joined by Dr. Stefanie Puckett for her presentation on Agile Leadership. Stefanie is a psychologist, a certified executive coach, Agile practitioner, and Agile coach, and she's worked globally for several consulting firms in management and for a Fortune 500 company, as well as running her own business. Agile Transformation is Stefanie's passion, and she's written several books, including the Agile Culture Code, which we're actually giving away in our Instagram competition this month. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over to Stefanie, and if you could please put any of your questions throughout in the chat, and we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jade. I am a fan of the Agile Business Consortium. I really like the work you guys are doing, so it's great and very highly appreciated that I can contribute and be part of this. And I'm shocked. I thought Germans are punctual. I did not expect us to open on like sharp at 8 p.m. your time. So that's great. I see there are still people dropping in the waiting room who are then admitted. So Jade, if it's okay, can I just like wait a minute?
I'm just reading where people are from. Apparently it's the Swiss who are punctual.
At least we Germans like to, describe us as very punctual as well. So
got some people from America.
Oh, you see it in the chat. All right. Okay. So I already said thank you for having me, for hosting me here, and thank you for all of you to register and Zoom in the discussion about Agile Leadership. You've already heard. If you have questions, post them in the chat. We'll get to it. And then I'd like during the presentation here and there to interact a little bit with you. So please be prepared, write your responses or what you have in the chat. Unfortunately, I can't seem to figure out how to look at the chat while I'm in presentation mode. So I rely on you guys, Katie and Jay, to help me to then fill in the responses we're getting. So tonight I would like to talk about Agile Leadership, and I'm sure you've heard the term probably more often than you would like to hear it, as usually it's used as a buzzword, a phrase, and there's often not really much behind it. And this is what I would like to talk about, or I like to call for a very distinct definition of leadership competencies we need to have for leaders and aspiring leaders to help us guide through volatile and disrupted markets. And when we talk about competencies, there's one big advantage to it. Competencies can be learned. So if we're asking, is Agile leadership a trade or a craft? When we focus on competencies, what we really need to be successful in an Agile environment, then we're talking about craft. We're talking about something we can learn. That is good news. But first of all, I would like to address the point I struggle with. The concepts that we have in Agile, which are popular about leadership, they do not really hit the mark. So I would like to take you into the Agile knowledge body to see what they say about Agile leadership. It might be a byproduct or a stepchild. Let's look at Scrum. So we see a product owner, we see a scrum master, we see the team. I do not see a leader here. Let's move on. Any idea what that is, or what do we associate with this picture here when we talk about leadership? You can post it in the chat. Jade, if you see something, just call it in. Any ideas what association you have with Agile leadership seeing this picture? Let me give you another one. Any comments?
We have Kim, Winona, and Sri saying servant or servant leader.
Perfect. You got it. A servant leader. Well, if you are a servant, you're not a leader. Let's move on. What do you guys see here? What's your idea? I'll give you one more.
We
Coach.
have team and coach.
Coach, perfect.
Collaborative.
Perfect. We have the leader as a servant, talking about servant leadership, and we have the idea of the leader as a coach. However, if you're a coach, you're a coach. You're not a leader. Those are two different roles. So there's not a lot about leadership here, from what I can tell. So it actually leaves us with the question, what is leadership? And I like to look at the word's meaning. And the word leadership or leading is an Old English word. And what it actually means is to go before as a guide. And there is plenty of research. In fact, there are decades of research about leadership and leadership competencies and how can leadership behavior lead to success. I'm a psychologist, so I'm very fond of research. It kind of grew on me and I like to look at it. And there are decades. However, circumstances change and the context is certainly one of the most important parts of the equation if we try to predict success with leadership behavior or leadership competencies. And the context has shifted. So we're asking for agile leadership now, assuming that agility is needed or agility is going to help us to cope with the current challenges the market is handing us. So what I would like to know is there research that ties back to the you see the bookshelves here on the little graph on the books and books and books of knowledge we already have, but now trying to transfer it into an agile context. And there is a study I would like to introduce to you. It was done in 2017 and was the idea of the Global Center for Digital Business Transformation. Just saying, we know a lot about leadership and we need to be a little more specific talking or calling for agile leadership. So let's find out what that actually means. And the IMD Business School, it's a Swiss business school, partnered up with Miete Beratung, a small consultancy firm in Germany, to follow up with that question and try to use empirical measures to find out. So what we did was to try to set up a global study. We believe agile leadership is global, it's a global idea, so we needed to have the whole picture. We asked 1,042 executives from all over the world, across industries, and we added in-depth structured interviews with 19 of them. And as a result, we identified core behaviors and competencies that are needed in today's market situations for agile leadership. So what I would like to do is I would like to guide you through the results and share with you what's new or what do they mean for day-to-day leadership behavior and what kind of picture do we get looking at them. So here is what we found. That is the model we're going to work with, or the framework I would like to introduce. For now, please ignore the little orange triangles and focus with me on the 3 circles in the middle. We have hyper awareness, informed decision making, and fast execution. Now, what's behind this? You might have heard the term of digital business agility. This is how the IMD Business School defines it. And behind this is observations, observing startups, observing companies who manage to successfully compete in volatile markets, in markets that are highly disrupted. They manage to stay successful or even bloom in this kind of markets, and analyze their organizational behavior and compare it to those companies who shy back from entering such markets or from entering and failing in the market conditions. And what they found out is these three behaviors is really what makes the difference. So companies who can bloom or blossom and be successful in volatile and disrupted markets, they show those three characteristics we're going to go through in a moment. Let's start off with hyper-awareness. You see the three letters HIF, if you want to call it that, H for hyper-awareness. And now, tell me what you see on this picture. Just give me some wild guesses in the comment section. Jade, as soon as you have some, just throw them in.
We have craters on the moon, marshmallows, old coins, looks like a Connect 4 game, chocolates, being fed to an ML algorithm, pill packet.
Okay, well, thank you.
Wide range there.
Marshmallows and chocolate, that is a first. Never heard that before. You guys must be hungry to have these associations. So what it actually is, it is a picture, it's satellite pictures cut together of oil storage facilities from around the globe. It gives us, of course, this is a picture, but if you look at it in real time through satellite, it provides a macroscope, a vast amount of information we actually are not able to take in. But putting it together like this, we have a real-time indicator for how much oil is currently stored in which storage facility, giving us some economic indicators. So you see the outside, the shadow casted on the outside tells us the capacity, and the shadow casted on the inside tells us how high it's filled, what the current volume is. And there are more examples like that. For example, monitoring metal roofs in Kenya as an indicator of growth or developmental growth, which might help companies to make sure they allocate resources correctly in supporting them. There are plenty of those ideas, and the idea is to call it a macroscope from NASA scientist James Crawford. It points out to us that there is so much information out there that provides indicators for current developments or can give us hints about trends, things we can predict from it, that hyper-awareness is one of the most important aspects to, or let's say, characteristics to have for an agile organization. If you look at the quote, it's like having an everlasting radar. Those quotes are from the study where we constantly track the situation. Well-informed is no longer good enough. That is challenging. That keeps you on your toes, as you do not only have to monitor what's going on in your business sector, you need to look beyond, look into other business sectors, see if there are parallels, or if there are changes happening in the ecosystem of your customers, which might impact their needs or their preferences concerning your services. So hyper-awareness keeps you on your toes. So the question is what you're going to do with all the data you're collecting. And this is where the second factor comes in, informed decision-making. We can also call it data-driven decision-making if you want. It is what gives companies, or some startups, but also bigger companies, a constant competitive advantage over others. Netflix is an example, or Zara, who use data to simply, basically automate their decisions and be spot on with the choices they make. It is data over intuition. And this is sometimes what traditionally brought up leaders, the leaders we face today in many contexts and businesses tend to disagree with, because they got strong by leaning on their intuition. And that is totally fine. I mean, you still need some sort of intuition, since data might be ambiguous, or there might not be enough data for us to make an informed decision. However, some go as far, you see it in the quote here, to say no data, no decision. So what's interesting here is that the picture we have from agile organizations who are nimble, who are flexible, who do not always like processes or like to keep processes lean. Hyper-awareness and informed decision-making are actually two areas where agile companies have pretty heavy structures, allocating a significant amount of resources, trying to gather data, to monitor, to analyze the data, and to make sure it is included in every decision that is taken. And now the third component is fast execution. Here is a picture. So basically what it tells you is we do not always have time to really have the perfect product or service and make it all shiny and nice. We don't have time to put our Italian shoes on. We just need to get our foot in the door. If this is our tennis socks, it's our tennis socks, but we need to get that foot in the door. We need to ask, we need to act fast. And this is speed over perfection. Something I can tell you, especially we Germans struggle with tremendously. Although in our companies from all over the world who say, this is our weak point. We're more of the paralyzes, analyzes, paralyzes kind of people. We do not get the foot in the door. And now one way to do it, and this is what we also learn from Agile principles, is simply empower the team. Put the decision, push it down into the lowest level, into the lowest level possible, to make sure decisions can be taken immediately. In the quote, you say an example of filters of signing off. He's talking about a homepage, and before there were how many filters to go through before a homepage could be finally adapted, and now they simply do it within 1 or 2 days, getting rid of all the filters, empowering the people who work on the solution to take the decision to go forward with it. So if we now look at the 3 circles in the middle, you know how we might tend to say you need to be extremely hyper aware. That's great. You need to really take informed decisions, digging into the data and basically not coming out of it again. And you need to be very fast. You might feel that it's pretty contradicting. Either we spend time in looking for new data, observing the market and analyzing the data, or we're fast to take decisions and fast to get rolling. And this is why we're not striving to be the best in all of those 3 facets, but we try to get a balance here. And if we don't have it, this is where those little 3 orange triangles pop up, warnings. I'm going to introduce them to you because they're nice and illustrated pretty well. Why don't you look at those 3 bubbles just quickly and think about where are you strong? Are you good in analyzing trends, observing, gathering information from all over the place? Are you good in analyzing those information and integrating them in your decision? Or are you more someone who acts extremely fast, takes decisions fast, and gets things rolling before they're perfect? Let's look at the ones I already addressed, the analyzers, paralyzers, candidates who are very hyper aware and analyze the information. They go ahead and collect data, analyze it, come to conclusion, but then before making a decision, going back thinking, hold on, maybe we missed something. Maybe there's another announcement we need to integrate, or another development we want to hold on off. The warning that pops up here is self-explanatory, slow driving warning. It's not going to happen for you. You're not going to get on the road to success because you're simply too slow. Now, if we have someone who is very hyper aware, but also fast in executing, but basically forgetting to do thorough analysis and looking at the pros and cons, but acting on trends they basically smell in the air. They go ahead and take action. They got their warning, careless driving. Might not end well either. And if we have the fast people and they're also strong in informed decision making, that is great. They're going to be really careful taking decisions and take them supported by a good amount of data. So they're going to be very self-confident going down that road. They put a lot of thoughts into their decisions. The problem is they forget to keep monitoring. Maybe things have changed. They're working on this perfect product, but 4 weeks from now or half a year from now, it might no longer hit the mark of the need of the customer. So they, as well as this decision was planned out, might be going in the wrong direction. Those are the 3 warnings. We're going to circle back on them at the very end of the presentation. So what I'd like to do now is look at what's left. So if you're an agile leader and you pay attention to enforcing those 3 behaviors to achieve digital business agility, that is great. However, it's not enough. You're not only leading a company, if you want, but you're leading people. So how do we ensure that agility is not only manifested in organization behavior, but carried throughout the organization? This is more about people leadership. And here we have those 4 competencies we identified as key for agile leadership. It's the so-called HAF model. So we have humbleness, adaptable, we got visionary, and we got engaged. So I'd like to go through them with you. Humility. If we present this model and work with it with senior executives, we do see raised eyebrows here. And I understand humbleness is not necessarily what gets people into a leadership position. Leaders are bold, leaders use their elbows, they're very self-confident. That's the picture we have, and this is in fact what we see in most organizations today. However, humbleness does not mean the absence of self-confidence, and it also doesn't mean you can't be bold. What Google does, I like it because they rephrase it, calling it intellectual humility. This is basically being smart. We were able to be those bold leaders, self-confident, who knew it all and knew it all best back in the time where the leader was the actual expert and was the king in decision-making, took the best decision. This is no longer the case. The areas, the decisions we have to make are too complex. It's not possible for one person to overlook all the possible consequences or be an expert in all the areas that are now involved if we try to come up with connected solutions. So intellectual humility means to acknowledge this, step back, and not be offended by other people having better ideas, but embracing them. So it's stepping back and acknowledging that people around you might have the better ideas, might be even smarter than you, more knowledgeable in some fields. Treat them on equal footing and take in or include their views, or delegate the decision. I see it here in the quote as a small piece of leadership advice. Utilize that. It says, appoint people who are better than you, are smarter than you, who know more than you in their respective area. Being able to admit that and see your own boundaries, your own limits to what you can know and what you can process is a strength. That might be a little mind shift change for some leaders, but that's where today's journey is going to. So that is humility. Let's move on to adaptability. For some, this is what Agile is all about. Sense and react to it, inspect, adapt. That's pretty much at the core of what agility means. You have a little Agilist here looking at a nice big waterfall with a companion who was wondering what that Agilist was before. Maybe a waterfallist, we don't know. What adaptability is about, though, is pretty close to that idea of getting off the waterfall and being able to adapt along the way. In the quote, you see what the, let's say the main challenges for leaders that try to be adaptable. It means that we have to be able to correct our decisions. Yesterday, I might said, let's take a left turn. Today, I have to say, oh, I'm sorry, we're going right. Or maybe I'm not even sorry, but I have to say, guys, we need to go right. I know that today because there's new information, or I know it today because someone convinced me that that is a better choice. Again, approaching it humble, to be able as a leader to say, hey, if you guys know it better, go ahead, challenge my opinion. I'm absolutely open on changing it, and I'm going to revisit my decision. It's not a standalone thing, and it's not a weakness. Again, it's a strength to be able to change your mind and to be able to adapt. The danger here is if we have a leader who's highly adaptable, they might react very quickly on new information or on new trends. And the picture we have is that of a flag in the wind. It is very adaptive and adaptable. However, it doesn't get us anywhere. And here's where the third component comes in, visionary. If you want to think of a name, think of Elon Musk, for example. He's pretty bold, but boldness in terms of carrying a vision on his sleeve. So we do have the quick reaction to the direction the wind blows, but we're not a flag, we're setting our sail. Here is also where, the boldness comes in for being a leader, but it is connected to a purpose. Disruption is bold, and leaders need a courage to come up with strong convictions and come up with a strong vision and really wear it on their sleeves to unite the company's efforts, to really channel people's energies to make sure that, especially in terms of a lot of adoptions that have to be taken on short term, we still have a long-term direction. We're not changing. That's the stability, or one of the stability aspects in agility. Now, if you're a leader, you need to activate, you need to somehow make sure that the cognitive potential, the energy, all this in your organization is somehow mobilized. And this is done via engagement. I do like those pictures because what leaders are doing is pulling strength, is connecting. And one of the simplest idea of leadership is to coordinate and organize collaboration and cooperation where it would not necessarily happen naturally. And that's still the case in Agile leadership. So the Agile leader has to plug in, has to be connected with the inside of the organization, with his people or her people, but also with the outside of the organization. And it means they have to listen a lot. They have to listen internally, get to know their people, and be with their ear pretty close on the base so they get a hold of ideas which are worthwhile supporting. They need to listen to customers, they need to listen to stakeholders, and they need to have an open ear of what's going on outside of their organization, being plugged in interest groups, for example, always hearing the latest gossip, what's going on in technology, for example, or on the market in general. So it's a lot of interaction, a lot of networking, yourself helping others to network, and listen. This is engagement as the fourth component of the HAF model, competencies for Agile leadership. So that's it then. That's Agile leadership. Makes you basically unbeatable, makes you a superhero. Now you look at it, we're talking about 7 components here, some even contradicting itself. So do we need to have it all? And just a few days ago, I found a beautiful quote. You see it here from Jasper Brodin. He's the CEO of the Inca Group that also owns IKEA, saying the power is where the people are. Believe in yourself and your strengths, but don't forget to rely on other people's strengths too. And I think that beautifully sums it up. Agile leadership is nothing you do by yourself. If we really want to apply humbleness, we need to be humble here as well and say, okay, those are 7 dimensions. a single person will have a hard time pushing for all those 7 and really implementing them and keeping them alive in the workplace. But that's not necessarily necessary. Agile leadership happens through people. So the Agile leader has to be smart, humble, and engaged to try to get people on board to make sure that those competencies are happening, that they are ensured within the organization. Okay, now I need to do something with you. But I can't go out here. Okay, we'll have to do this. Basically, without me taking notes, that's a pity. It doesn't matter. So again, please get your fingers on the keyboard and get ready. The have and the have model is supposed to help leaders to solve leadership challenges the Agile environment creates for us. So I would like to pick your brains, and you can put it in the comments, thinking about how do we utilize these 7 dimensions to help solve core leadership challenges we have. So let's look at hyper-awareness. What comes to your mind? How or what measure would you take to use hyper-awareness in the organization? Just type it in the chat. Jade, just throw in whatever comes in first.
Christopher has said real-time data.
Perfect. Ensure you got them.
We have Winona says stay in touch with the outside world.
You connected, right?
We've got blind spots, moving targets, collect ideas all around, and market research.
Perfect. I like the idea of the moving target.
Looking at other industries for new applications of old ideas. Empathy inside and outside of the company. Collaboration, working across teams. Talk to customers. Establish direction and create a vision.
Yeah, that goes over into the competencies. There is one nice little thing you can use in the idea of hyper-awareness. It's a lot of work, and as I shared, Agile organizations have dedicated resources for that. So why not put up a chief information officer, if you want, who's dedicated to get that kind of information, this radar we talked about. Very nice. Hyper-awareness simply is gonna, when you look or when you think back at the warnings, prevents you from taking a wrong turn and wasting your time on things that look great when you took a decision, but they already lost their meaning because other changes were going on. Nice. Let's move over to informed decision making. Just give some ideas. Informed decision making. How does that help you to solve leadership changes? How can you ensure it? Anything?
Nothing come through yet. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, of course. Informed decision making, same thing. So how do we use how does informed decision making help us solving our leadership challenges, like taking the right decisions, steering correctly? And how could we ensure informed decision making?
Okay, we've had some answers come in. We've got it builds confidence in the team and it lets others step up. We have data to substantiate the direction vision as practical as signals are clear. Informed decision helps balance intuition. Holistic.
Very good. I especially like the point you guys made, and it builds up confidence in teams. That is so true. If I have the data, I need to take decisions, I'm comfortable to do that myself. And this is actually also one of the basic actions you can take as a leader. And that is simply, if someone comes to you asking for a change or suggesting an idea or thought, you send them back and ask them to collect data to substantiate the need for change, or to give that idea, to back it up with data. That's a very simple new routine leaders can build into their day-to-day leadership. Great. Okay, now fast execution. What are you guys' ideas here? What helps? How does it help, and what?
Mario said flow. Jenny said test and learn. And Sri said delegate.
Right, very good.
Experiment. Fail
Perfect.
fast and learn fast.
Right, that's up. You're absolutely on the spot here. If we act fast, this of all enables us to learn fast. It enables us to adapt quickly to the results we're seeing. Very nice. And also the point of delegating is spot on. If we want the fast execution, we gotta empower people who are confronted with a customer, who are on the edges of the organization, to make the decisions here and then and act on it. Very good. Okay, this is the digital business agility. You guys pretty much nailed it. This is how this can be applied in day-to-day leadership. Let's move on. We still have time. Let's move on to the have competencies. Humility. What comes to your mind about humbleness? How does that help you?
We have being human, listen and learn. It creates curiosity. Open-minded to new solutions. Think of others and the team. Don't be dominant and be open for others. Listen to ideas and have empathy.
Very nice.
I can't achieve without others achieving.
Right, perfect. So basically, summing all that up, what you're saying, how humbleness helps you as a leader is through one simple action, is to ask for advice. If you don't know how to solve your leadership challenge, go ahead, get the team together, ask for advice, ask for feedback, like you said. Perfect. Okay, let's move to adaptability. What comes to your mind here?
We have flexible, open for anything new. Embracing change and learning. Shift with new information. Admitting that you don't know everything. Accept change as ingrained. Flexibility and in touch with reality.
Perfect. I could just continue listening. I think that's great.
Yeah,
That's a
lots
great
coming
part.
in.
Okay, let's move for the 10. Let's move to visionary. What comes to your mind here? Visionary. How does it help you to solve leadership changes? And how can you be visionary?
We have creativity, innovation, thinking outside of the box, North Star, in step with what's coming next, creates focus to check positioning, vision over micromanagement.
Yes, that's nice.
Simplify the roadmap ahead for all to understand and engage. Open to best practice, sets the direction, creates the justification, and instills the need.
Nice. Okay, good. The visionary part, sometimes introducing this as a mandatory competence. Some people are a little put off by it, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm not a visionary. If you have a vision, you might have visions. You might need to go to the doctor. That's not me. I'm not creative. I'm not a bold thinker." Agile leadership, what it's all about is you as a leader have to wear the vision on the sleeve, but nowhere does it say that you are the one who has to come up with the vision. Again, we're humble, we are engaged. So why not getting your team together and asking the right questions, setting the right environments to getting them to think outside the box, to think big, think creative, think crazy, and have them together coming up with a vision you then going to carry forth. Very nice. Now let's look at the last competency, engagement. How does that help you and what can you do? Anything?
Yeah, we have empathy and drive, helps awareness, collaboration, engagement brings the team for collaboration, everyone's working towards the same goal, we sink or swim together. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Open to the feeling of others and trust, strength in the group, mission, vulnerability.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Pretty tangible. Again, engagement, one core aspect, and that is something we can start doing tomorrow. We can start improving on tomorrow. And this is being plugged in, having a great and strong network inside and outside the organization, and helping others to grow their network. To really get this interconnected state, you need to mobilize the thoughts and the people. Great. Okay, I see you have a good idea on how to use this model to really tackle leadership challenges. That's great. Before we come to take questions, there's one thing I would like to give you as a homework if you want. If you look at this graph again, there are two things you might want to consider if you're working on improving your leadership or adapting your leadership to be a better fit for an agile environment. So one thing, of course, is the digital business agility. So you make sure you drive the organization in the right direction and the teams. And what I would suggest here is look at those warnings. So think about, we already triggered it. So you thought quickly, where do I see myself most and which of those bubbles, and what does it mean for my personal warning, for my personal leadership risk, if you want. So take a note here and think about ways, and you got a lot of ideas now also from the crowd here listening in, what can you do to mitigate that risk? And then the second thing is, I do like working based on our strength, strengthening the strength, and not always looking and focusing on our weaknesses or development fields. So a good way to start is looking at the HAVE model, those 4 competencies here, and think about what are you strong in? What are you really good in? Where have you might heard compliments in the past or received feedback, or simply know that this is where you build up strength and competency in your past. This is your unique selling point. We don't have to cover all 7 dimensions alone, but you might want to find your unique selling point that you can use to position yourself in the organization and really have an impact as a leader. And now one of my favorite experiences working with this model is that sometimes you work with people, they are not in a leadership position and they don't care. They don't really want to go in a leadership position. They were never really interested in it. They want to have an impact. They want to get something done. They don't want to lead. However, when they start reflecting along this new competency model, they see that actually they have a great amount of leadership potential inside that was overlooked before based on our traditional leadership images and competency models. So what I find very rewarding is that this new model kind of opens the stage for people to step up who might have not considered themselves the leader type before, but now really find their way forward. This is a very nice experience. I hope that one or the other of you also saw or found new strengths or new potentials within yourself to see how you can tackle agility in your own way. Great. Okay. Well, this is my presentation.
Thank you, Stefanie. That's really inspired a lot of ideas.
Great. So what I want to say, just to basically plug in with you guys, is agility is about learning. I think that's something we can all agree on. So I would really like to continue this learning journey with all of you. So reach out to me, get connected. You see my webpage here, you see my email address, and you have my link tree here where you can see or find where I am on different social media challenges. And I cannot leave the stage without at least hinting here on my book. I co-authored with Rainer Neubauer on Agile Leadership. This is basically the book about the HEF model, a guide how to develop it. Yeah, that's it from me, Jade. I'm open for questions. I assume there's probably some in the chat.
Yeah, Stefanie, I've just reposted a question there that Sharon asked earlier about how has this model been used inside organizations, who is using it and how?
Leadership development. Some organizations seem to like to use it in the executive leadership development parts, which I kind of disagree with. We try to convince people this model should not be only taught to executives, it should be taught throughout the organization. So leaders on all levels can step up. So it's pretty heavy from what we see in the leadership development, but it is also used, especially the digital business agility part, to help with the strategic prioritizations in companies and to try to make sure that's how I'm in touch with it a lot, is when companies are trying to transform, be it in strategy, business model, or in the way of working. I like to use it as a like a compass or something to double check. Are we missing something in our reinvention of the organization? So this is basically the most usage from what we know, what's mirrored back at us.
Thank you. We also had a question / comment asking, is this also about ensuring that the team is right? The team sort of makeup is right as well?
That is actually a very good thought. So if we go back to the beginning of the presentation, when we look at our Scrum team, we don't see the leader. We have the Scrum Master, we have the product owner, which kind of carries some of those or is responsible for some of those dimensions. But if we're looking at the idea of a team that self-manages and maybe, if you want to use the term matures into self-steering, then this model is something I would definitely hand out and trust in the hands of a team, saying, guys, you have a lot of responsibility. You're really empowered to take your decisions. Make sure they're good ones. Within our market environment, here are the things you might want to consider. Someone had mentioned before, preventing to have blind spots. And that is what you could also use it for the team. So I would say the higher the degree of empowerment of the team is, the more important it is to really, for the team, to make sure they're covering these 7 dimensions. That's a very good question.
And we have one more, which is, have you found that there's a section in the model that people struggle the most with in trying to become an agile leader?
I'd say the initial most difficult parts are humbleness, as it clashes with the idea of the self-confident leader, and then the part of saying, well, speed goes over perfection. I feel like when traditional businesses are shifting to agile, this is where they struggle with the most. How do you all of a sudden create equal footing if you have before a strong hierarchy? Do I lose my face when I admit, I'm no longer the expert? I need your guys' help to make a decision. If I start listening to ideas, regardless of where they come from in the organization, there's still this fear of losing your face as a leader, and then this idea to just let loose and rely on trying, inspecting, adapting as the way to come to a solution, instead of having the perfect plan and creating the perfect solution, step into. These are the two main challenges I feel for people to overcome.
Thank you. We've got one more. I'll make this the last one. How have you seen the challenges on finance buy-in? Yearly budget cycles do not adjust to change without significant benefits.
And what's the question?
So I think it's, have you seen any challenges with finance buying into adopting the model?
Well, the part with finance is, I feel, a big challenge is adapting to agile planning, as this is really not what they're used to. I feel like this is a challenge, and the other part finance doesn't like to hear is that fast execution comes with a certain amount of risk taking. My impression is that, especially in finance, people tend to be a little risk averse. Being the planner, being risk averse, so pushing them here to their limits, so pushing them into agility, I feel like it's a little, or it's a challenge that pops up in the finance sector, maybe a little more than in other areas.
Thank you so much for answering those questions.
You're welcome.
And thank you for such an inspiring presentation. And I'd like to thank everyone who has inputted in the chat. It's been really good reading all your comments. If you would like to, we have a feedback form which I've just put in our chat. And you can sign up there to get updates, and especially to get our recording of this session. We're also calling out for speakers for our conference in October, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's session in general. Our next event is this Thursday, and that's facilitated Agile Leadership Games, so hopefully we'll see some of you there. And yeah, I'd like to just thank Stefanie again for her presentation, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you
For having me. And Jade, like you, I really enjoyed you guys' comments. Thank you for adjusting to this digital and virtual context and engaging with us via chat. That was really great. It was great fun for me tonight. So I hope it was for you too. And yeah, I wish you the very best and hope we stay connected.